Don Rush here, West Coast Classic Cougar, and this is another continuation video on our series we're doing on this 15,000 mile Survivor. And today I want to focus on the vinyl roof and the headliner. I'm basically just going to show you some observations of what a correct car looks like. The first thing you're going to notice is this is rock hard. I mean, this feels like it's almost a texture sprayed on the roof. It's so hard. There is no padding underneath this. Your cheaper replacement vinyl tops will do a super thin material and a thicker padding underneath. This is supposed to be thick material with rubber cement glued down. And they always had this die-cast trim on here in 67, 68. There are studs every so often here that you can only get to from the inside. Do not think that you're going to put a screwdriver here and pry yours off, because you're going to break them off. And even if you want to go without a vinyl top, they're expensive and they can cause rust underneath. Even if you want to go without a vinyl top, carefully take this trim off and sell it to West Coast Classic Cougar for those guys that thought this comes off with a pry bar. So just a little tip there. Came in white and black in 67 and 68, that's it. There was also a two-tone option where you get two-tone paint, where usually this was painted white or black, and then you had body color, and then they put this simulated stitched edging here, but they did this in chrome, and that's never made sense to me. Why would you have simulated stitching on a piece of chrome? But anyway, that's what they did, and that's kind of a rare car that would be a two-tone, and it would be evident on your door tag in the paint code section or on your Marty report. Another thing you might ask is, why does my car have extruded aluminum here? Well, that would be a dealer installed vinyl top, and they had very soft anodized aluminum that they could just hand form over this. And those are actually more prone to rust underneath than the original. So I'd suggest not putting that back on the car if you're restoring your car. So let's look at some stitching spacing if you're trying to recreate original. Notice that the stitching kind of lines up with this piece here. And if we're going from the outer edge of the vinyl top seam to outer edge, you're going to be at about 43.5 inches on that. And we come down to this piece here. This is also a sewn piece from this edge all the way over to here. You're at 50.5 inches. And I don't see much variation on that. One thing you will notice, as you sight down this vinyl top seam, look how crooked this is. I've seen them worse than this. I've seen them better than this. But if you've ever laid down a vinyl top, you realize that you've put your high-tack rubber cement on one surface, and the back surface of this, and you've also got it painted on or sprayed on the roof surface, and once you lay it down, it's hard to peel it back up. So a lot of times they would get these waves in there and say, close enough. Let's go on to the A-pillar over here, and you'll notice on this car, there is no seam. And I don't know the rhyme or reason, but some cars did get a seam, and think about how much material you save by having a seam here. You could just use a little scrap of material to fill this in as opposed to a big swath. Another thing I want to point to is original vinyl tops have this stainless steel serrated edge trim piece in here, and that helped retain the vinyl top down. And from the factory, they actually, I've talked to people on the line that used to put these on, they had a mechanism they could pull down that was spring-loaded that would help them push this in. So they didn't, like you and me, they didn't sit here with their fingers and work it in. See how it's starting to raise right there? We could probably push that back in, but it's not sticking, so we're just going to leave it like that. These are kind of a pain. They're a pain to take out, and they're a pain to put back in. And I've noted, and this is very consistent, I've not seen any variation on it. San Jose built cars, they actually drilled and put these steel rivets in here. I don't think they're aluminum rivets, I think they're steel rivets. But a San Jose car, to help keep this retainer in, will have a hole here and up here to keep this piece in. And they're random. It's wherever they felt like putting the drill, so it's pretty hard to find one that matches your car. We do have them on our website. Most people these days just fill this in with urethane. These notes are just for the person that wants to stay original. Okay, here we are in the interior, and I wanted to point out some things on the headliner. This is the nicest original headliner I've ever seen. It is just perfectly installed. This, we haven't been able to find any sign of mice ever being in this car, which for a car that's been stored most of his life is almost impossible to find. But this is what we call moon crater texture, which is the only texture used in 67 and 8. The visors were also the moon skin texture. Your biggest problem when you pay somebody else to put a headliner in is oftentimes it comes back with none of the hardware in place, like this visor mate or these seatbelt hooks or the holes for the opera lights. Anyway, that's a challenge. How do you find those holes? So I'm going to give you some guidelines here. I'll tell you the best way to do it is when your headliner is stripped out, you put all the Phillips screws back in place. Therefore, after your headliner's in, you can feel where that head of that screw is and take your X-Acto knife, make a tiny little perforation, and then the material will spread around the Phillips screw. Most headliner installers, interior specialists should know this, but it's amazing how many times they don't know this and we get a call, an SOS call. So first off, this visor mate, or visor clip I call it, is dead center in the roof. So you got to figure out where dead center is, and then you will find, oh, these old visor tips are rock hard. But we're trying to keep this car original, so I'm going to resist replacing them. So we'll put that there for now. Anyway, you'll feel a ridge along here. That's your roof structure. And this bracket goes right, the edge of it goes right at that leading edge. It doesn't overlap it, and there's no space this way. So that'll help you on that installation. Your visor brackets, it'd be pretty hard for me to get a measurement right here where these visor brackets go, but I'll throw a measuring tape up there, and we're going to measure from that ridge to the first screw. And from that ridge to the first screw, I come up with 1.5 inches. And see how the point goes forward, and the back here is the flat edge. So hopefully that gives you a little help. Now, the second measurement I'm going to give you is from the pillar pad. And some of these cars, 68 standards mid-year, most of them, in fact, don't have the pillar pads. In fact, the flyer that came with this car said it was deleted along with the rocker moldings and a couple other things like the wood grain fascia steering wheel. So I don't know why this car has the pillar pads. Might be a San Jose thing. Could be an accident. Once the line worker drilled the holes, well, you better put them in. So it might be something like that. The second measurement I'm going to try to get for you, we're going to go from this screw hole, which we hope is in the right place, over to here, and on center, you are at 1 3/4 on center from this Phillips screw to this Phillips screw. Moving on to the coat hook, we'll try to, here we go, we'll go from on center, from the Phillips screw that holds your pinch weld molding on, to the first screw is 15 5/8. When I say first screw, there's 2 holes in this. Moving along, this is one people always, a lot of times, people did not want these cumbersome shoulder harnesses reinstalled when they put the headliner in. Well, as time goes on, we as a people are more safety conscious. So I think it's better if I got you a diagram and showed you without the headline. But basically, here's how it should lay in conjunction with that screw. So you're lined up with that screw. So you can take a little awl and put your hole about there and kind of surf around for that bolt hole for this bolt that holds this shoulder harness seatbelt in. This one here, your opera lights, these are optional, not all cars have them. This one is easy to find because if you have your opera light bucket housings back here, you can feel that circular pattern and then perforate your headliner for it. Again, I may have mentioned this earlier, I didn't. Headliners are always put in before the front and rear windows. If you have a installer that says I can just tuck it in there, run, don't walk. That'll never work. It will not stay. It'll just work its way out. Headliners are always installed from the rear forward. There's little hooks that anchor that headliner bow, this one right here, somewhere in here. Anyway, anchor it to the, it's right here. Anyway, anchor it so you can pull off of this bow as you go forward. No trim on the interior except for in the package tray. Two-piece color-coded trim. Notice also, in 1968, this masonite panel goes under the rear interior panel, not over. In 67, they went over and had a little piece of plastic trim hiding the leading edge of your masonite board. And that trim is always missing, by the way. But yeah, your package tray in 68 is a different configuration than 67. If you look at my competition's website, they say they're the same. Well, if you look at my website, there's a distinct different shape, 67 versus 68. So a little bit of trivia there for those of you that want to get it correct.